test anytime soon?
Me.
Very applicable, right?
Not me.
Who will never have exam after this?
Me.
Many people, when they go through their lives, they encounter some kind of test or an exam or both. So my presentation today is about how to conquer tests and exams, because that's going to help you throughout your life.
I'm just curious.
I don't know.
Should pass the
I wanna be
This was actually, this presentation is an adaptation of a lecture I gave to my home grad school to the students a year before, year after us, because they were going through the second year of grad school of Korean, English to Korean, translation and interpretation. And let me tell you, you think this medical school is difficult, that school is difficult in another level and in another way.
Yeah.
We may not get a textbook, but we have to know everything, every field, to a certain depth. And we have to be able to deliver that right away when we were called. You can't say, sorry, I didn't sleep. Sorry, I'm not feeling well. I'm dizzy. I didn't eat. No, none of that would happen. I didn't have any tools. No, it doesn't work. You're going to have to translate and interpret. So I gave this lecture during class time, and they were very attentive. Many of them passed their exams, but even when they did not pass, it helped apparently. Thank you. So there are 3 steps to conquer tests and exams. Very easy. You may not think they are that difficult and that significant, but if you think about it, if you actually master these 3 steps, you can basically conquer any test and any exams in any format at any time in your life. Know thyself.
That's so sad.
Second, you have to know your enemies. By what I mean by enemies is tests and exams, or whoever's testing you.
Is your enemy?
And number 3, keep your balance. Balance is so important. You should know this.
Between what?
I will talk about that now. Don't get too zippy here. Let's go. Number 1, know yourself. I didn't fail the test. I just found 100 ways to do it wrong.
Whoa.
This was from Benjamin Franklin.
Okay.
I gave you this quotation because you have to really think about what is right and wrong. There are definitely some absolute truths as to what is right and what is wrong. But when it comes to studying or learning, it's actually better for you to make a lot of mistakes before it happens, especially for your doctors. It's better for you to make a lot of mistakes with textbooks, on the writing, on the paper, instead of actually going into the operation room and oops. With the patient, that's kind of dangerous, right? Thank you. So you have to know strengths and weaknesses. You have to know who you are. You have to know your personality. I'm an extrovert. I am a classical extrovert, and I like talking. I like hearing my voice. I like hearing other people's voice. I like interacting with people. The more people, the better for me. But I lived with a roommate who was a classic introvert. She hates being with people. She hates the sound of people's voice. She even hates the sound of her own voice. She wants to be left in the room, alone, without any sounds. The slightest, smallest sound would bother her. Even like the ticking of a clock would tick her off. Drive her off the wall, literally. So you have to know your personality. If you are a people person like I am, or Duke is, then it's better for you to study with people. But those people better be extroverts too, or else they're going to get really stressed. If you are forced to be alone and studying, then you can talk to yourself, say, okay, Angela, this is the concept that I have to learn. I have to learn about this, and this is going to be in the test. What would the examiner say? What would the interviewer say? You can make a script in your mind and then play it. I actually do that, and it's really helpful for me. That's because my learning style evolves around pictures and sounds together. I'm an audio-visual tactile learner. I started out with audio learner a little bit, and then I was forced to be a visual learner because my brother liked it quiet, so he would always say, "Shut up, Angela." I had to draw pictures, but there will be an internal voice telling, "I'm not crazy, don't worry." I would have all these kind of scenes in my head, and I'm a very tactile learner too, so I do a lot of things like knitting and crocheting and cooking and baking, all those things. So if I have to use all my senses, I would, because I'm comfortable doing that. But I know that if you go online and find personality and learning style, use google.com, don't use google.co.kr. It will give you a lot of Korean sites that are not very credible. But if you go and find your learning style, there will be some people who are very heavily one learning style person. I know that my friend is heavily audio learner. He does not respond to any of the other cues except audio cues, which is very good for him because he is working as an interpreter, and usually interpretation comes in sounds. And he's okay with typing. So he is a big tactile learner, so he can type when he has to do translation, which is good. But for me, I tend to go around and use all the senses, but I am strongly audio-visual tactile learner. If I get those three together, I will maximize my learning curve. And previous experiences actually help you, because if you were, let's say, an English major, you would know a lot more about English than other people. You would know, oh, this story I learned from my second year English literature class. Ew, the professor sucked, but I remember hearing some of the names. Yeah. That actually helps, because a lot medical knowledge is a language too, and a lot of them are English words. So if you have a good knowledge in English, then it'll help you, because you can actually read it and sound it out better than other people. If you're maybe a biology major, you would be more familiar with biological terms and concepts, so it'll be easier for you to learn that way. So if your previous experiences, don't let that be a hurdle for you. Don't think of it as something of a stumbling block. Use it. So if you respond well to art subjects, then you can draw pictures to learn it. Duke actually uses that a lot. Instead of really writing all his notes, he draws a lot of pictures. He doodles. If Korean teachers saw that, they would definitely smack him and say, "Study!" But that isn't studying, because he remembers it better and he can recall what he's learned better. If you are an English major and you respond better to English, then try to write your notes or summarize your notes in English words that you know. I actually like making a lot of signs, my little signs, so I use that a lot in my note taking. So instead of writing computer, I would write C. Instead of writing speaker, I would have circle with stick, saying a person with a mic. Something like that. You can use your imagination and your previous experience and your academic backgrounds as well in your previous experience. And also, I've noticed that people who gave birth to babies, they tend to remember a lot more knowledge in pediatrics than any of the other ones. They have to really put an effort, but you're like, "Oh yeah, my daughter, when she was 3 months old, she was doing this, I remember that." No-brainer. It happened. Something like that comes naturally. Experience can help you, so you have to use it. So you have to use all of these. And a lot of Korean students, they think they know who they are. They don't. It's because they've been always told to do certain things very early on in their age, regardless of what they think and what they like and what they do best. So you have to really sit down and think about yourself. Take one of those free internet tests and say, what am I good at? What do I like? What do I respond the best to? What kind of cues work best? It's nice that if you see someone smart like PJ here, and you might want to know how he studies, but his studying style would be totally different from what you are, then it'll not work for you.
I'm sure he has totally different.
My learning style bugs the hell out of my mother, for example. It bugged the hell out of my roommate who was a classic introvert and who hated making sounds. She was an amazing singer, but she really didn't want anyone sounding it out. But when I'm studying English, when I'm studying anything, I have to read it out loud and make sense out of it by hearing my voice, looking at the words, and then I will be tapping too.
That's
So I'm
not my style.
very, very messy. Very messy. So, but if it works for you, stick to it. And if you learn from somebody else and you tried it and it works, keep it too. You have to develop your own learning style tailored to you, not to anyone else. Learning is to draw out. The word education actually comes from a Latin word that means to draw out. You think that word, that must have been wrong because you tend to cram in. It's not cramming in, it's drawing out what you have. So you have to take out your potential, then you have to know what your potential is. Next. You have to know your enemies. The wise learn many things from their enemies. Aristophanes is the greatest representative of ancient Greek comedy. Comedy was actually a genre back in those days to use their high philosophical and social political knowledge to make people laugh and think at the same time. Don't think about one of those Korean gag shows. That's just stupid, okay? This is comedy as in Shakespeare comedy, okay? Shakespeare comedy isn't just funny. You have to think about it too, right? So you have to know what you're dealing with. I've studied to come to medical school before, and I've seen a lot of students who are going, oh, I heard that this Howard is so good, let's all go! But the teacher wasn't teaching about the meat test at all. He was just teaching about really difficult chemical concepts. And everyone was like, oh, he sounds so good, he must be right. They never bothered to look at the previous exams of meat. What's the point of that then? If you go and like flock around people who sound smart, if they're not talking about anything that's relating to meat, right? So you have to know what you're dealing with, what type of tests or exams you're having. If you're, for example, preparing for tests, then you would go and buy a book from the bookstore that has the compilation of all the tests beforehand, right? So that you will read the trend of the tests. I know that you guys all have 족보, and that is also for you to learn whether the test will go along with it or away from it, right? So you have to know what kind of tests you are going to have, and date is very important. Everything has a due date, if you think about it. And if you only have a week, you're not going to be spending your precious time on looking at Harrison. This thick book, oh, I'm going to read page by. No, you're not going to do that. You have to plan wisely with your time. So you have to know when the exam date is, not just so that you're not going to be late, but also so that you can plan ahead. And topics covered, of course, is very important. If you're being tested on chapter 3 and 4 and you study chapter 5 and 6, you're screwed. Sorry, that's just the way it is. You have to know what you're being tested. And you have to know whom you're dealing with. Most of the times you would be dealing with a piece of paper and maybe an exam mediator or supervisor, but sometimes you have a practical exam where there will be fake patients, or maybe a cadaver and a bell. Bing! Next! Bing! Next! I've heard of those horror stories. You have to deal with these non-paper, non-document things when you're writing a test, especially when you have to speak and deal with people and knowing that most of you are doctors, or doctors-to-be, that you're going to have to deal with some kind of animate object. Let's just call it that way. So you have to know who will be involved in the test. If you are going into an interview, it doesn't hurt to do a little background research on the interviewers if you already know, or about the school that you're going to, or the hospital you're going to, what they're strong at, what they're interested in. It doesn't really hurt, especially when you're doing an interview. And patients, it helps to know a lot more cases than not knowing any of the medical cases, right? I know that it's kind of like a hit and miss luck thing, but it wouldn't hurt to watch other doctors performing and operating and dealing with patients and think of yourself in that situation and say, well, how would I do it? How would I do it different? What would I learn from that person? How would I act as a patient if I were sick, like that? What would the parent, what would the patient's family think of this kind of situation? What can the hospitals do better? Doctors are being produced more and more every year, and they can't just all be doctors. You're going to have to think of other ways to use your knowledge, use your medical knowledge in some other way than just a practitioner. You can do this by making a lot of scenarios in your head or acting it out. And 3, keep your balance. Problems arise in that one has to find a balance between what people need from you and what you need for yourself. Jessie Norman is an African-American opera singer. She is still alive. She's not dead yet. She was born in 1945, so she's old, but she's not dead yet. But this is the problem of many Asian students, especially Korean students, because they have been living on high expectations of their parents that they feel so guilty that if they don't deliver, if they don't perform to fulfill their expectations, it feels like you've done the worst thing possible in this world. But they're not going to live your life for you. Maybe they are living your life for a short period of time, but after they're gone, you're going to have to live your life for yourself. So, study versus rest. This is the question that's been boiling in students' heads for centuries. Not just years, centuries and millennia, okay? You have to know your physical limit. For example, I know that after a certain point, my brain stops. Literally stops. It just stops. I can't think, nothing comes in, nothing goes out. It's just, I'm awake, but I'm not really. You have to know your physical limit. A lot of medical students, they'll push themselves to the point where nothing goes in, and they know nothing's going in, but they're so scared they have their books open, and they sleep on it, hoping that by matters of osmosis, some information will go into your brain. I've done that before, not with medical books though. I'm sure medical book has more cushion because they have more pages. But you have to know your physical limit and you have to know your mental limit. You have to admit that what you don't know, you don't know. I know that some of those doctors will go, how can you not know? Ask them, are you a supercomputer? Do you remember everything that you learned in medical school? I don't think so. I know that by Confucianism,
That's what I would like to.
by Confucianism, you have to say, oh, I'm so sorry, but tell yourself in your head,
I'm not really.
jerk. I'm not a computer. I'm not a computer. You have to give yourself
I really like to do that.
and you just have to know your limit, not just a physical limit or a mental limit. Limit to everything. For example, your boyfriend calling you, who's not in medical school. Let's go out this Saturday, and you have the biggest exam on Monday, and you can't afford to do bad because you've been doing bad for like the previous 3 months or something.
Wow.
You have to set certain boundaries, and you have to let them know, I do love you, honey, but I have this exam, and I want you to be understanding of this. We can meet for maybe an hour or 2 for coffee, but no more than that. And you have to keep that to yourself, and you have to keep promises that you make to your. And even if you break those promises, it's okay. We're human beings. We're not perfect. We're not gods. Okay. You have to let yourself a little bit of freedom, and that's what you need, especially medical school students. It's not a mortal sin to take a break. You can go to bed. Sleep is important, honey. You guys are all built to have enough sleep, have enough food, and have enough rest. Especially for certain learners, like me. If I don't take good enough rest, if I don't play, and if I don't have the freedom to be creative, I actually start going backwards. I start forgetting things. That's what stress does to me. But if I just take an hour break of knitting and drinking my favorite tea and eating cookies or something, and then go back to it, efficiency goes up. It works. You just have to let yourself go a little bit. And You have to know why you're studying. This is actually very important. I know that you have
first point about it.
Right, exactly. Korean schools are designed so that you will be a studying machine, giving right answers every time, at every moment. But you are not a computer. Even computers fail when you overwork them. They shut down on you, losing all the data you have put in for like copious amount of time and energy. It won't work. Sometimes machines, they break down on you, saying that no more. Oh, screw you. It happens to you too. You are built that way, so you have to know the purpose of medicine and medical school. Why are we studying this? Why is this important? Why is this significant? Why do we have to go through these stupid professors who are telling us stupid information in such a silly way that it doesn't even sound right? He's telling me something. He was telling me something 2 minutes ago, and he's telling me another thing 2 minutes after. He's contradicting himself all over again. And I'm sleepy. I only had an hour of sleep for 2 days, and why am I here? You have to think about that. You have to always go back to the purpose of medicine. Medicine is there for you to help. It's a tool to help sick people. Okay? It's not just some glorious idea written in dead language like Latin or Greek to impress other people. It's not like that. It's for you to understand a disease better so that you can help people. Help people better. And your purpose of studying, I don't care, and you shouldn't care what other people tell you. If your purpose is to earn money, you're going to have to work really hard. And it's not a good enough reason for some people, but for some other people, it'll be a good reason. Doctors making cha-ching money, good for them. They're going to have to stick with that purpose. If your purpose was to help people, then you're going to have to come back to it. If you tend to forget because of the workload you have, write it on the board, write it on a piece of paper and stick it in front of you or something. Write it on top of every book. I used to do that. It helps to remember why you're there, why you're doing the things you do. Sometimes it can be really, really, really stressful and you just say, oh, I don't know, I don't want to do it. It's okay. That's your body telling you to take a break. And you should take a break. An hour, a day, or a week. It doesn't matter. It may compromise the studying time and your test. But you will get more tests after that. Don't worry about that. I guarantee you that. That's a promise. That will be kept. And that should be kept on the side. So you are going to have to take a break and give yourself a little bit of freedom. And think about it. Just take a walk outside for 10 minutes. And enjoy the weather, enjoy what's outside, and think about, oh, there will be sick people, cold season, flu, maybe I should get flu shots. Let your mind wander a little bit, and then come back to it. You will find yourself studying a lot better. So you have to prepare to conquer, not GSIT graduation exam, but your exam. GSIT is Graduate Schools of Interpretation and Translation.
We recycled it, actually.
Yes. I told you so. That was a disclaimer in the beginning of the presentation. So, number 1, know yourself. Check. Number 2, know your enemies. Check. And number 3, keep your balance. Check. If you get 3 checks, you're really good to go. Remember, there are 3 more quotes that I want to share with you. They're kind of important and very interesting. First one is the difference between school and life. In school, you're taught a lesson and then given a test. In life, you're given a test that teaches you a lesson. Think of it this way. I know that 6 years of elementary school, 3 years of middle school, 3 years of high school, and 4 or 5 years of university in this country will make you think that the world is out there for us to learn something and then we're tested. No, it's not like that. The real world will give you a test. It's up to you to take it and learn from it and solve it. If you make a mistake, it's okay. We're bound to, but you learn something from it. Don't get yourself immersed in, I failed, I got F, blah. No, learn something from it. Try to learn something from it. Try to get positive results from it. Seuss is one of my favorite person. He is an author who's passed away, who wrote a lot of books, including the Whovilles. Do you know Horton? A big elephant who can hear the Whoville sounds and everything. And, well, he made a lot of English grammatical sentences that rhyme, and you're going to have to think a little bit about it. Be who you are and say what you feel, because those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind. So people who don't care about you, they'll say something really bad. I know that some people who care about you will say something bad too, but it'll feel different. You will know about that. And those who matter to you, they don't mind that you are being you. They will accept you for who you are. So believe in those who believe in you. And if they're just lashing out some bad words, some bad comments about you to your destroyed end, then don't listen to them. You have to keep who you are. You have to remember balance. Next one. And this too shall pass. Remember that this too shall pass. Everything passes in time. Thank you very much for my presentation. These are the references.